Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. It's the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you're still getting settled and you haven't yet noticed, to your right, my left, your left, my right, you'll see two QR codes posted on the columns here in the building. Those QR codes will direct you to Wings credit for this seminar and several of our others. You'll be redirected to a Google form. On that Google form, you'll just check the boxes for which event you attended. This one will be called Pre-Flight and Weather Briefing. If you don't want to get up right now, they'll be up there all week. I'll also put it up on the projector behind me. So if you don't want to, you're comfortable, you're settled, you don't need to get up and wander around, they'll be up after the show, and they'll also be up behind me during the show. So I want to thank you guys for joining us. This is our second day of forums here at OSH. We seem to have solved the technical problems we were having yesterday morning. So if you joined us yesterday morning and you were a little annoyed by that, we were too. That seems to be solved. So this is our first time running through this session here at OSH. This is an overview of weather products in ForeFlight. I'll go through an agenda of what it is I'll talk about. I'll do a brief introduction to who I am, what we do. I'll give you an overview of things that are happening here at the show, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the other presentations and some of the other forums we have going on. Earlier on, my colleague Dan, handed out some schedule cards. If you did not get one but would like one, we have hard copies up here. Feel free to grab one after my presentation, and I'll just display it up here as well. So if you don't want to walk around with a bunch of cardboard, it'll be displayed up here as well. So my name is Jeremy. I'm a member of the customer education team here at ForeFlight, along with Dan and Thomas. If you join us for any of our presentations this week, it'll basically be the three of us over and over and over again. I'll actually be on this stage later today, so if you'd like to see me and hear me again, I'll be back up here at 1 p.m. talking about custom content in ForeFlight. So just to orient you to where we are, we're currently in Pavilion 7. This is our ForeFlight Education Forum. To get to our booth, we've had some questions about where our booth is located. So the simplest explanation, you can look at this map and figure it out yourself. If you also have ForeFlight open and just open up the ForeFlight airport diagram for Whitman Regional, you'll see we made a special plate for OSH that has some details of where the events are, and you can kind of just use the GPS, navigate yourself that way. If you'd prefer just directions, just walk that way, make a left, keep walking till you find the ATC tower. Then you'll see a big blue building that says Boeing on it. We're inside that big blue building. We have a little outdoor, I guess pop-up you'd call it this year. That's for more like informal gatherings if you just like to kind of hang out. We have cornhole, I think we have popcorn, bottles of water, things like that. That's on the outside. If you have some specific questions though about things in the application that you'd like to see demonstrated, I know someone earlier was asking Thomas about our new dynamic procedures features. If you'd like to see those demonstrated, just come into the Boeing Pavilion. There are, I think, 19 iPads set up, and I believe there's 20 or so of my colleagues who can help you out. If you just want to hang out with other ForeFlighters, though, go to the outside little booth pavilion area. It's nice, some comfortable chairs set up out there. This is our schedule for this forum for the rest of this week, including today. I'll take a moment to talk about this. Again, if you'd like a copy of this, those are those hard copies at the front of the stage. We'll just leave those after I'm done speaking if you want to grab one. So right now, I am doing weather products in ForeFlight. That's the forum you're sitting in. At 1 p.m., I'll be talking about, you'll notice here it just says personalized content. If that's not descriptive enough to you, there's a character limit for how we can explain these. So basically what the personalized content will be is how to bring your own content into ForeFlight. So if you've ever wanted to make your own maps and bring those into ForeFlight, make your own plates, bring those into ForeFlight, make your own graphics, bring those into ForeFlight, I'll be talking about basically the simplest and most user-friendly way to do that. It's all designed to be as accessible as possible. So I'll be talking a lot about things like just Google Earth and how you can use Google Earth to make some products to bring into the application. Is anyone here a CFI or affiliated with a flight school? Okay, so for those of you who are, one of the use cases for this kind of material, again, this is what I'll be doing at 1 o'clock, If you have a flight school or are a flight instructor and there are certain training areas that you want to designate for your students, make sure you're in this training area, make sure you're avoiding this area, whatever the case may be. And you've always wondered, like, how can I just put that in ForeFlight easily and share it with my students, share it with my CFIs? I'll talk a little bit about that. It's actually quite easy to do. So that's today. Tomorrow, we'll repeat what we did yesterday, which is ForeFlight fundamentals and ForeFlight power users. If you were here yesterday, I know the first event, we had some interruptions, so maybe you didn't actually get the entire ForeFlight fundamentals, but those forums are effectively unchanged from day to day to day. After that, on Thursday, we're going to start in the morning at 10 a.m. with What's New. And What's New will be an overview of features we've released in the last calendar year or so, as well as a sneak peek of things that are coming out in 2025. And this will include, we'll talk about our dynamic procedures. Many users received an email on Thursday promoting the dynamic procedures feature. This is really helpful for if you're doing instrument flying. It just brings together all the years and years and years of Jeppesen data and aeronautical map stuff that we've put together into, I think it's really cool. It's a really neat feature. If you'd like to see it in action, you can wait till we do that forum presentation on Thursday, or just come by the booth. We have some of the iPads are set up there with non-release versions of the app. So we can show you guys stuff that's not out yet and walk you through how those dynamic procedures would work. After that, on Thursday, we have optimizing your iPad. This is a very beneficial if you've ever wondered, like, what iPad should I buy? I'm unfamiliar with the different iPad variations. What's the best way to get the most out of ForeFlight on my iPad? Dan will be running that on Thursday at 1300, and he's going to talk about basically the best iPad buying advice for ForeFlight. We'll talk about how the different devices work, different ways we know that people use them, different ways to maximize your device to get the most out of ForeFlight. We'll repeat our fundamentals and power users again on Friday, and then Saturday, you'll see there's a teaching and learning forum at 10 a.m. That's going to be run by my colleague Ryan Bolander. He's in charge of ForeFlight education accounts. So again, if you are a CFI or if you're affiliated with a flight school, or if you're a student, honestly, and you'll be here on Saturday, that's going to be all about how to teach people how to fly with ForeFlight. So that'll be Saturday at 10 a.m. And then we'll end the show at 1300 with another version of the Optimizing Your iPad. Right-hand side of the screen, I have all my show specials here. These are pretty much unchanged from last year. So I know a lot of folks renew their ForeFlight every year at Oshkosh and just get the same discount. It's basically the same discount we had last year. If you're a new or upgrading customer for our premium or essential tiers, you'll get 20% off. That'll include Jeppesen IFR charts. If you're already a premium subscriber, you'll get, you'll get 10% off. There's several different Jeppesen data discounts as well. And then the Sentry, we have 10% off the Sentry Plus. The one thing I just want to point out, this year we're not selling the Sentry Plus in our booth. You can just buy it at Sporty's, the same discount applies. They're just better at having the stock on hand to make sure they can more efficiently sell it. Every year we do it, we either bring way too many or way too few. They're much better at managing the retail side of that. So this is something that is brand new that I want to talk just a moment about. We sent this out as an email with not really any fanfare. Was it last week, Dan? Okay, just this Saturday? Okay, so about 1 week ago, we sent out this email with no real fanfare or marketing, so you may have just gone to your spam folder, not paid any attention. So we have a program, like I said, my job is doing customer education and things like that. I work for the GA pilots, the BA pilots, and the military pilots, and there's a program we've run quite successfully in our Austin office for our military users, where we do 6 times a year. We have a 3-day intensive ForeFlight seminar. So it's basically this kind of setting. It's obviously much fewer people, but it's this kind of setting, and we'll just do 3 days, become a ForeFlight subject matter expert by the end of the 3 days. We've talked about how we'd like to make that program or similar available to our GA or general aviation audience, and this is our first effort at doing it. So it's going to be October 15th through 17th in Austin. If you scan that QR code, that will bring you to the registration page. I do want to temper your expectations just a little bit. It's possible this is already sold out. We will be using the enthusiasm for this event to determine whether or not to offer this multiple times per year. We do offer this multiple times a year for our military customers. We anticipate offering this multiple times a year for our general aviation customers, but as of now, this is a one-time event, and seating is quite limited. It is in our offices. We have a training room that accommodates 36 attendees. So if you do try to register and you try to pay and it's sold out, I understand that would be frustrating, but register anyway. We'll have your email. Again, if the enthusiasm is there and we decide to do another one, you guys would be the first people we email, the first people we contact about those dates. Whatever we decide will be the availability for that. For the reason we picked October, is anyone here from Central Texas? Anyone? Central Texas? Okay. So if you don't believe me, ask them. October is like the best time of year to visit Central Texas weather-wise. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. That's also F1 weekend in Austin. So if you're an F1 fan, the F1 events start Friday. Our event wraps up Friday. So if it's something you're interested in, if you want more information just to talk about it, hit myself or Dan up after this presentation, and we will give you the details. But again, that's to register. It may be sold out, so I don't want you to get too excited if it will be sold out. All right, so wings credit, again, I'm going to leave this up for about 30 seconds or so. I'll put this up at the end of the presentation. Again, these will be up permanently up until Saturday afternoon if you need to just grab it. If you've attended multiple ones of our sessions, you don't need to keep doing it because it's the same form every time. You'll just reopen it, select that you went to a different forum, and again, after this event, it just generates a form that goes to myself, Thomas, and Dan. We audit it, send that to the FAA, they verify your email, and then it usually takes 2-3 weeks. I'll put this up at the end also. One of the things we just always want to get out to folks, if you ever run into any problems with the app, just email us. It's the quickest and easiest way to get someone from ForeFlight to get back with you. Our pilot support team is on frequency 24/7. Everyone on that team is a pilot. Every single person there would be able to address your question as quickly as possible. Email is the most efficient way to get in touch with us. Our response time, I believe, globally is under 15 minutes for most issues. Most issues people have are not super difficult to respond to, but at any time you're running into an issue, please email us there. While we're at the event, just ask one of us. We'd be more than happy to try to troubleshoot something for you. All right, so now that is all out of the way, I'm going to jump into what it is I'm talking about today. So this is my agenda. I'll be going more or less in this order. We should have time at the end for Q&A and some live demo of things. If I do run out of time, what we usually do is Dan and I just step off to the side while the next speaker gets set up. We'd be happy to take any questions you have. So I'm going to start with the sources and validity of ForeFlight weather. This is a very common question we get. I'll walk you through where our weather products come from, the circumstances in which they are valid to fly with. We'll talk about pre-flight weather briefings, how to access these, the different types of pre-flight weather briefings, again, where this information comes from, the currency of this information. Weather and takeoff landing analysis. This is a feature that you may not have on your account. When I get to it, I'll explain what it looks like. I'll explain if you don't see it, why you don't see it on your account. We'll talk about weather imagery, available weather imagery in the app. Packed weather data. So if anyone's done any flight planning in the application, on the Maps tab, you'll always see that little suitcase icon with the little exclamation point. That's our pack icon, and I'll talk about how packed weather data works. Weather products on the map. In-flight weather products. So I'm going to talk about ADS-B in. I'll briefly discuss XM weather. Just different things you can get access to in the application. This is not included in this presentation, but it has come up already. I was in the booth, I had a couple questions about it, about internet weather while you're in the cockpit. If you have internet in the cockpit, either via Starlink or maybe your cell connection's just really good or you're flying at a lower altitude, it's the same weather you're going to get when you're connected to Wi-Fi. So if you're thinking about installing a Starlink in your aircraft or something like that, to give you internet access in the aircraft, you'll have access to the same information you would have when you're connected to Wi-Fi or when you're connected to cellular. And then I'll end with some weather products on the Apple Watch. Apple Watch is something that I won't be able to demonstrate here. You probably can't see, but I'm wearing a Casio from like 1987 that does not have any smartwatch capabilities. If you'd like to see the Apple Watch demonstrated, we do have folks in the booth who could walk you through how ForeFlight works on the Apple Watch. So I'm going to start with my sources and validity of ForeFlight weather. I have a bunch of QR codes on here. I don't want you guys to feel like you always have to scan these. I'll explain what these are. If you're interested in it, then scan it. So this is just a link to the web page where we list the sources of ForeFlight weather. So we often get comments about, hey, where's your weather come from? Where's your weather come from? The fact of the matter is most of it comes from NOAA or the weather company. There are some specific differences for specific products, and sometimes they change. So if our contracts change, if our providers change, on occasion, those weather products sourcing may change. If it does, it's always updated on this page. And this is just what that page looks like. So you can see right here, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they provide all of this. The weather company, they provide all of that. So if you're ever in a conversation with somebody about ForeFlight weather, again, the validity of it, the sourcing of it, the simplest thing to do, this is the actual URL that directs it to you. But if you just Google, where does ForeFlight get its weather, that exact phrasing, that should be the very first link, should be this page. And it is updated every single time we update a source. If you're a military user of ForeFlight, you have some additional weather products and additional sourcing. If you're just a civilian user of ForeFlight, this is what you'll see. For military users, that includes any CAP members. Anyone here flying for CAP? Okay, so for those whose hands are up who are flying for CAP, you guys should have access to that, the DoD military weather. If you've never seen it on your account and are wondering what I'm talking about, at some point just come up. I can walk you through where you can find it. But for CAP members, you should probably be the only ones here who would see that additional military weather products. Everyone else, the answer is mostly NOAA, the airports themselves, and then the weather company for a lot of our imagery. So anytime we update stuff, we reflect that. So the next question we typically get, and this is something that comes up a lot every single time we do a webinar about pre-flight planning. And in the webinar, we mention pre-flight weather briefings. Inevitably, and it's understandable, people ask like, well, is this legal? Can I legally use ForeFlight for my pre-flight weather briefing? The short answer is yes, you can. So in accordance with 91-103, the pre-flight weather briefing, that's where you can find all the guidance. In accordance with that, if you read that to the letter of the law, this is legal. When I fly, I do additional weather briefing. I don't simply use the ForeFlight pre-flight weather briefing. I still call AWS and get, I'm flying VFR, so it might be a different circumstance, but it is up to the PIC to make sure that they are fully briefed using all the information they have available to them. But if you just wanted to use just ForeFlight, it is legal and valid to use per 91-103, and that's the pre-flight self-brief is right here. And what we're looking at right now, this is just an excerpt from 91-103, so that's all I'm showing. So this is just showing you the excerpt from 91-103 regarding pre-flight weather briefing. Additional weather is at the discretion of the PIC. My personal experience is I do get additional weather, some through ForeFlight, some through other sources, but I'm maybe not as an experienced a pilot as some of you, so maybe you're more comfortable just using ForeFlight. So this is what I'm showing you here now. These are the self-briefing guidelines that are listed in Advisory Circular 9192. So if you'd like to reference that at any point, it's AC 9192, it's section 419. That's where you can find all the self-briefing guidelines. And the reason I'm highlighting that is it tells you what a self-briefing is. It says a self-briefing uses all means and source of reporting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically the PIC needs to do his or her due diligence, make sure they're briefing the flight. The last bit here says available sources are listed in Appendix A. This is Appendix A, and you'll notice that these sources are things like NOAA. So the sourcing that is recommended for your pre-flight weather briefing is where we get our information. Again, to get a full weather picture though, this will be based primarily on your preferences, what your best practices are. If you're flying as part of a flying club or organization, you may have SOPs already established that create minimum weather briefings. But to answer the question is ForeFlight sourcing valid? Is the weather brief valid? The answer is technically yes. Again, whether or not you're comfortable flying with this, that's kind of on you as the PIC to determine. So in that same vein, I want to just move on to our pre-flight weather briefing packages. I'm on my flights tab. I'm not going to walk through planning a flight. If you were here yesterday or join us tomorrow for our fundamentals and power users, we'll walk through all the details of planning a flight. If you were here yesterday for power users, this is the flight I ended on. This was Topeka to Osh. So once I have all this information planned, I can do my pre-flight weather briefing. At a minimum, in order to get the briefing, I need an aircraft type selected, departure, destination airport pair, ETD, and a flight level. Once I have that information, I have everything I need to generate my pre-flight briefing. You can do all of this on web also. I mentioned this yesterday during our power users. If you're more comfortable planning on a desktop, ForeFlight Web is available to every single ForeFlight subscriber. It's not an add-on, doesn't require anything additional. If you've never used our website for planning, the website is plan.foreflight.com. It's your exact same login credentials that are on the application. The functionality is almost identical. So here I'm going to go ahead and just start my pre-flight briefing because I have all my information included. I'll go ahead and tap on briefing. So what we're seeing now, and you're welcome to follow along to see if you have any areas you're confused, identify pain points or something you want to ask one of us a question about at the end. What we're seeing now, this is our graphical PDF format, and I believe I just have a video scrolling through. I do. This video is just going to scroll through all the information that's included. The briefing package itself is timestamped. Every time you hit that briefing button, ForeFlight will compare the data you have, see if there's been any updates to the forecast or reports. If so, they'll generate a new updated briefing for you. This will include standard pre-flight weather briefing products, things like winds, prog charts, METARs, TAFs for all airports en route. It also includes things like NOTAMs and SIGMETs. If you'd like a hard copy of this briefing, so if you're the kind of person, again, if you're flying as part of a flight school or a flight club and you just want to make sure you are verifying people have briefed this flight, you can require people to print this out, download it, email it, whatever. To do that, we're just going to use this send to icon in the upper right-hand corner. Once you tap on that, you'll see all of your available options. You can email this, save it, print it, whatever it is you would prefer to do. Now, most users don't actually use that format regularly. I'm going to guess if you've used a pre-flight weather briefing, you've used a different format. You guys have options to have two different briefing types. There are some exceptions. If you're on a business or group account, you don't have the option to do what's called the graphical HTML brief. I'll show you what that looks like. What the graphical HTML brief should resemble what you're used to using most of the time. If you did want to change your briefing preferences, well, you can tap on settings, then briefing format. This is where you can change the type. Graphical HTML is the default for most users. My account was showing a PDF because I'm on a business account. If you are in a business group account, you'll see PDF. If you're curious what I'm talking about, this is what the graphical HTML looks like. So this is probably more in line with what you're used to seeing, is this type of format. The content is basically exactly the same. The only difference is the HTML briefing allows you to navigate it section by section by using these buttons here on the left-hand side rather than scrolling through. That's the difference. The only other big difference is the graphical HTML. Because it's an HTML product, it can't be printed easily. So if you did want to download this, you really can't print it. So this is a video showing you me navigating the graphical HTML briefing, or it should show that. Yeah, it's the same basic thing. The only difference is you can go section by section instead of just scrolling through a really long PDF. Because this is an HTML, there's less options to print. I can do that by just going ahead and tapping on my send to icon. And what I want to highlight is you'll notice on my iPad there is no option to print, but I can share the link So you can send this to somebody else, and if they hit open in Chrome, it'll just open the URL. It'll view it as an HTML briefing. So again, if you're a flight instructor, if you're in a leadership position at a flight club, oh, that'd be fun. If you're in a leadership position at a flight club and would like to keep track of making sure people are briefing this, you could just write an SOP that says, hey, every user email us a copy of the briefing you received, and they can do that HTML or PDF. Again, mileage may vary on the utility of that. So I want to look now at some additional functionality. This is our weather and takeoff and landing analysis. So this is something available. I'm going to try to walk around. We'll see how this works. I don't know how much slack I have here. All right, so this is something that's available to our premium subscribers. So if you've never seen this before and I show you on my screen and you're like, hey, that's pretty neat. The primary reason it's different is if you're not a premium subscriber, there's some differences with aircraft, you won't see this functionality. So what I'm going to show you is our takeoff and landing at performance analysis. This is available for over 300 supported piston aircraft. So most folks in here, if you're flying a piston aircraft, we already support it. There might be a handful of makes and models we don't, but we probably already support it. If you're flying a turboprop or a jet, we might support it, but that's you'd have to reach out to us and ask if it can be added on. If you're just flying a piston aircraft, we probably already support it. If you've never seen it before, I've personally met with many airplane owners and operators who are already paying for this and don't know they have it, and they're a little surprised when I show it to them. If you don't know if you have it, if you have a flight planned, as long as you have an aircraft selected, if you see these takeoff and landing buttons, that means you have it. That means we support takeoff and landing analysis for your aircraft. If you don't see it, it's either you are not a premium subscriber or you're operating an aircraft that's not supported. If it's the latter, if it's an aircraft we don't support, email us. It might be something we can whip together pretty quickly. I mean, we just use the manufacturer information. It's really just a matter of time and math for us to build out those performances. But I don't know off the top of my head. The answer is probably not, but we should be able to.
We need to work on it.
Yeah, so if you email, the question if you didn't hear is about experimental aircraft. If you email team@foreflight.com, if you can provide us with as much information as you can, because it literally is just time and math that's required to build these out. I can't give you a turnaround time, but we do it, so just email us. I don't know off the top of my head what we have and don't have. Okay, so if you want to see how this works, I just went ahead and I tapped on takeoff. So what this is now going to show me is this is going to show me current weather conditions for this airport and this runway. If you're using an airport with multiple runways, you'll be able to select different runways and check out the conditions for each one, but that's what this is showing. The weather information, and I'll be repeating myself quite a bit here because it is important information. This weather information will always have a timestamp on it, so I can see that this is 46 minutes old, and the source is the METAR from that airport. So if I'm mission planning well in advance, I would probably want to revisit this information as well as a flight brief prior to departure. So this is 46 minutes old, it's fairly current. I may want to check again though closer to departure, see if I have some updated information, especially if the weather is a bit kinetic and it's not super static. But all of our weather products will provide the source and the timestamp. So if and when you lose internet connectivity, you'll be able to really quickly see, should I rely on this weather? And you have to obviously make that determination as PIC, should I rely on this information? But we'll always tell you how old or new that particular information is. One of the other things I want to highlight on here, each of these fields in the blue text, these can all be editable. So in this case, this is Topeka, so the METAR is probably correct. There's probably enough infrastructure there to accurately report what's going on. But if you're operating out of an environment where it's not reporting METAR, or maybe there's a problem with the automated weather reporting or something like that, you have the ability to manually enter in the weather. So if you have local knowledge that current conditions don't match what we say they match, and if we don't have a source, we will say that we don't have a source and tell you we're using forecast data or something like that, or the closest TAF. If you're standing on the field and you know like it's raining and we don't say it's raining, you can make changes here manually. And this will affect your performance calculations and the performance calculations we do for your flying. Right now, I don't have a runway selected. You'll notice it says none up here. I'll go ahead and tap on my runway field. Some of this information is not literally weather information. So we have stuff about like runway slope, condition, width, all of that stuff. But we will always call out at least whatever the current winds are being reported, so you can see, okay, based on current information, which of these runways am I likely to use based on the wind. This is my departure airport, so this is probably the same analysis I'm going to use for departure. I'm going to probably look at this pretty close to my departure time. The winds are probably not going to shift dramatically. We won't tell you what runway to use. We'll just call out what we think. We'll call out what has the most beneficial wind. I'm going to go ahead and just tap on my details field. The details field here, this gives you a lot more information and summary. Again, this isn't weather per se, but it is takeoff and landing related, and the weather would obviously impact that as well. But we can see all of our dimensions, we can see our lighting, we can see what the traffic pattern is. I'm going to go ahead and just select this runway, and I'll go ahead and tap back on close. We do have a detailed takeoff performance across the top. I can see things like my 50-foot speed, I can see my total distance, and for landing, we'll see similar information. This can all be shared as a PDF summary. So again, if you're a flight instructor, if you're operating a flight club and is an administrative capacity, and you want to make sure, like weight and balance, like weather briefings, that all of your pilots are taking full advantage of all the information, this might be something you add to an SOP that, hey, get the takeoff and landing performance. We want to verify at least that you checked it and you're within minimums. If you exceed anything, by the way, we'll call out an error. We'll say, hey, you don't have enough distance to take off. You don't have enough distance to land based on the conditions we're reporting. I just want to walk through the same thing for my destination airport. It's the exact same workflow. I'll go ahead and add a destination runway. The one thing I want to highlight, though, in terms of weather and pre-flight planning, this is showing me current weather. If it's a 4 or 5 hour cross-country trip, I might not want to rely on this. That might be too far out for me to rely on. This is fine for a pre-flight briefing, just get some situational awareness. I'm going to expect maybe to use runway 27, but just be prepared that because this is current, that may change dramatically by the time you arrive at your destination. But the information here is exactly what it was before. To view that PDF summary I was referring to, we can go ahead and tap on summary up here. And this is a printable, shareable, downloadable PDF summary of my takeoff and my landing performance. If you were planning with alternate airports, you would see the exact same information for alternates. So this is a great tool, just kind of like CYA, if you're running a flight club, if you are running a flight school, to make sure everyone's doing that minimum preparation to make sure they're flying safely with all the information they need. And this can be downloaded, printed, shared, all of that. Okay, so that was a couple different things I walked through so far. I went through the validity of ForeFlight weather, the sourcing of ForeFlight weather, how to access a pre-flight weather briefing, some of the differences in that pre-flight weather briefing. And I just talked about takeoff and landing performance and how weather can affect that as well. I want to talk about our Imagery tab. So the Imagery tab can be used in ForeFlight to supplement your flight planning. How you use this, again, mileage may vary about whether or not you are regularly using this imagery in your pre-flight planning. The imagery itself, this is available to all subscribers. This is not restricted or gated to any subscription level. The weather briefing, I didn't mention that either, is also available to all subscribers. The imagery does require an internet connection, so just be aware if this is something you would want to check out before departure, do it when you have connection to the internet. And this is something that cannot be received over ADS-B. So this is something that would be pre-flight in the FBO, in your office, wherever, prior to departure. So to view our available imagery, and this does vary region to region, so if you're operating outside of the continental United States, you may see some differences in what you have available here. We can do that just by navigating to my Imagery tab. If you don't see the Imagery tab along the bottom of your iPad, it's probably in the More tab over here because you might not have looked at the Imagery tab in a while. But the Imagery tab is where we can access all of our images. At the very top up here, you'll notice there's a regions button. If you have an account set up with multiple regions, for this audience, it would probably be people operating in Canada and the continental United States. You may have to toggle back and forth between regions to get the different Imagery products. You may or may not have more than one region. Obviously, it's going to vary with account. I'm looking at the United States right now. I'm just orienting you to how this appears. To the right of that, you'll see we have a favorites and recents button. If you're looking at the same imagery every time to plan, if the only thing you care about is, I don't know, convective imagery or something like that, maybe you'll just add that one. That'll be the one thing you always brief. This is the one thing I always add in my brief. If you hit the favorites and recents, it just makes finding what it is you're looking for a little easier. This is pretty straightforward. The favorites and recents will save you a few seconds, but it does make it easier if you're repeating this process over and over again. Everything available to you will be displayed here on the left-hand side with a description of what it is. Again, this will vary based on your region, so if you're not operating in the United States, this will be different. You would know if you're not operating in the United States, so I won't belabor that point. On the right-hand side, this will be thumbnails of the available imagery or the product we've selected. That's what we're looking at. So I haven't selected a product yet, so this is basically showing a bunch of different thumbnails for a bunch of different products. Whatever it is I would like to brief. So my example, I would like to brief prog charts. I'll go ahead and tap on that Imagery product, and that will load the prog chart. This will include the timestamp of that prog chart. I can also see that, actually, I'm sorry, this is the timestamp of that prog chart. This is when I viewed it. So I can see the timestamp of that product. And this allows you, depending on the imagery, I can brief the multiple packages. So if you can't quite see what's going on, I'm just changing the 6-hour prog charts by selecting a new version at the bottom. And I'll play that again so you can see. But that's latest. This is 6 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours, 24 hours, etc. So however you typically brief, whatever imagery you're using, just make that part of your regular SOP. You can add this to your favorites and recents so you can only look at those products. So if you're always planning within 12 hours, you probably really don't need to look at the 18 and 24 hours. Maybe you just save the 6 to 12 hour versions and just have it so you can access those a little more quickly. This is just the same workflow again, using a different imagery chart. This is my lowest freezing level. You can see here, these are all 1 hour increments. I'm just gonna look at my initial lowest freezing levels here. And just like with everything else, there is a timestamp. This has my validity on it. My source is displayed here. Again, most of our imagery data is coming from NOAA. If you notice, this has a pretty low freezing level down in Texas. For those who live in Central Texas, I did this during the one freeze we got this winter is when I took this screenshot. So if this is something that you are concerned with, again, this will vary based on how you fly, where you fly, when you fly, but I'm just gonna slide through, look at some of those different charts. I'm going to do the same thing. I'll look at my 6,000 to 14,000 foot chart here. We can say I have all my wind barbs. This is 6,000 feet. This is the 3-hour forecast, so for winds aloft. So typically, the flying I do is all VFR. I'm typically doing my pre-flight briefing. I shouldn't say typically, always. My personal checklist rule is to do it within 3 hours of departure. So this is something like this would be something I look at frequently. So just check the 6,000, whatever the altitude level I'm flying at 3 hours. I would obviously verify METARs and verify other products before I did that. I'm going to go ahead and save this one because this is a product I'm going to look at regularly. I regularly want my 6,000 foot winds aloft. And once I have that, it's hard to see in this contrast, but that has been saved. So every time I open up my imagery and I tap on my favorites, it'll load the most recent. It won't load this one. It'll load the most recent 6,000 foot winds aloft imagery. All of these can be downloaded and printed. If you prefer hard copies of everything, if you want to make a flight binder that has printed copies, you can do all of that from ForeFlight. There's no reason you can't. Most people would prefer to move towards something like a paperless cockpit, but some people do prefer to have the hard copies. We were working with business customers in northern Mexico, and they required all their pilots to still print out every single element of the flight briefing, including all of these, and they had a 3-ring binder that the pilots briefed physically, even though it came from ForeFlight, and that was just how their business operated. So we have those tools available to you if you prefer to do that. I've returned back to my imagery, just want to demonstrate that workflow. There's my favorites button. Excuse me. I marked that winds aloft imagery as a favorite. I will use that 3-hour forecast regularly. So every single time I click on that button, you can see it's already foregrounded at the top, 6,000 to 14,000 feet. I don't need to look for it. ForeFlight has a lot of features. One of the feedback we often get is people don't know how to do everything. They'll learn something and then forget because they didn't do it immediately. This happened yesterday at the show. A gentleman was asking me how to show him how to put a traffic pattern on the map. And he told me, he's like, I've done it before, I just can't remember how to do it. I was like, oh, this is how you do it. He's like, okay, it's pretty easy. He came back an hour and a half later. He's like, how did you do that again? So we do have a lot of stuff. These little shortcuts kind of reduce that heads down time a bit. Make sure you can use the app the way you want. So that's an overview of my weather imagery. I want to turn over to packed weather data now. So ForeFlight will, every time you plan a flight, if you're planning in the Maps tab, we will prompt you to pack for that flight. It's not always super clear what data we are packing, what we do with that packed data, and what you're supposed to do with that packed data. So if you have any of those questions floating around, hopefully I'll answer them in the next 5 minutes here. But for any planned flight, you can do this in the Maps tab as well, but I'm not going to navigate from this screen. If we scroll to the bottom, we have this option that says Pack. On the Maps tab, this is an icon that looks like a suitcase, but it's the same function. If I go ahead and, I'm going to send this to Maps. I can show what that workflow looks like. I'm going to send this over to my Maps tab. I just tapped on my Send To icon, then I tapped on Map. There is that same flight. This is my Pack icon. The workflow, the difference on the map versus the Flights tab, the red exclamation point is us telling you, hey, we think you should pack the data. What that means is when you first configure your ForeFlight device, you set up the region in which you're flying, you set up the type of downloads, the type of data you tell ForeFlight you want and you need for flying. Once you do that, every time that data is updated via data cycle or whatever, we automatically update that on your device. So most of you have gone through that process, new downloads, update them, blah, 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 blah. It all kind of just goes. Once it's kind of set it and forget it. What Pack does is we compare the data you've already downloaded to your device versus the data we think you should have for the flight you're planning. If there's a disconnect, if what you have and what we think you should have don't match, we will recommend you download some new data. Some of this, for a lot of users, might not be relevant, but this will include weather data, especially if you're operating in a new area. So I'm always flying in Texas. If I fly outside of Texas, I definitely have data I didn't tell ForeFlight I wanted to download. But once I tap on that button, there's something that, again, we kind of all do when you're using this, but you don't really think about the information, what's being presented. The way this is presented here, that's my route from Topeka into Osh. You'll see there's a corridor drawn around it. So that corridor is 25 nautical miles left, right of my route center line. The visual here is slightly misleading because it's also 50 nautical miles around my departure and destination airports. So the way it actually looks is closer to a dog bone than this nice, neat corridor. So if that helps you visually, just imagine there's circles around both those airports up to 50 nautical miles. So what we will do is we will compare the data on your device against anything that is within that corridor or intersected by the corridor. If you don't have it, we will prompt you to download it. So packed data is available offline. So you'll see here, I may not care about airport comments. I may not even need 3D aerial imagery, but I probably want my en route weather. This will be available online and offline. So the idea behind the pack data is that most of us, when we get to altitude, won't have internet connection. This gives you the most current data available so that you have access to it in the cockpit at altitude. We recommend doing this as your last step before leaving, well, before losing an internet connection. So however that works for you, make this as close to departure as possible. You can pick and choose what you want to download. If you download everything, you'll see this notification. I did just put up here, this is from our pilot's guide. If you're curious, this is our pack data type. METAR, winds aloft, dynamic winds, TFR, fuel prices, NOTAMs. And this is the time to which this is obsolete. You'll notice the shortest deprecation time for the METARs is 3 hours. I believe our pilot's guide, their official recommendation is pack within 3 hours of departure. What I just told you to do is do it as close to departure as you can, so you have the most current information. Sometimes that's 3 hours, sometimes it's 20 minutes. If you pack at 3 hours, then pack again 30 minutes prior to departure, the download will be much smaller because we're only going to update those features that have already updated. So once I'm done with this, I'll hit close. There is my route. I'm looking at it on the map. So I'm going to combine a couple different things right now. I'm going to look at my map overlay, and I've put on my clouds layer here. So it's a little difficult to see, and this is just kind of a contrast issue, but I'll zoom in and highlight this. For this example, what I did was I packed all my data, everything was packed. You'll notice my iPad's connected to the Wi-Fi. Then I just disabled the connection because I wanted to demonstrate what does it look like if I lose my internet connection. I'm trying to look at this weather data. As long as I've packed it, it's still there. It's still on my device. So when I tap on my aeronautical map, I packed my cloud data. And if you look to the right, you'll see it says data not available. That's because the area that was packed did not include that area. So that's how this would look at altitude. So if I'm packing for a ForeFlight, in this case my cloud layer or whatever it is the layer you want to look at, we will tell you where we don't have information. The reason behind that should be pretty self-explanatory. If I'm flying into Peoria, I'd rather know I don't have data than assume there are no clouds or assume there is no radar information. So that's why you might see those dashed lines, is that you just don't have the data for that. So one of the things I want to highlight here is because I mentioned that we do download data for your departure destination airports. This is something that's available to our premium users. If you tap on an airport, you can pull up a 3D view. This is not a live view, but this is a 3D view of the airport to give you some situational awareness, especially if you're operating in an airport or into an airport that you don't have a lot of experience with, just to give you some clue of what that looks like. So when I did my first solo cross country, I absolutely briefed the 3D view of those airports I'd be flying into, just so I knew visually what to expect as I was approaching. The pack also works in our profile view if you're a premium subscriber. So right now I've opened up my profile view for this planned flight. This is the available layers I have on here, things like turbulence and clouds. I'm going to just activate my icing layer, and you can see how icing exists at different flight levels. So this is something that you can access this as pack data. This probably makes way more sense to do as pre-flight planning though, so I can determine what flight levels it is I want to plan for, but this is available in my profile view. So those are my packed products. I want to look at my weather products on the map. So I mentioned earlier, my briefing process is I use my PC at home to do it. I plan my flight, I pull the weather brief from ForeFlight, my graphical PDF briefing, I read through that. I also will use extensively our weather products on the map. The last step I do is call AWS, so that's the process I use. The first thing I do is my PDF briefing, then I look at my weather products on the map. I'm going to jump around different locations here just to get a little more dynamic weather. So in this case, I think I'm looking at, this is Alaska near Kodiak Island, because when I was doing these screenshots, I'm based in Central Texas. The weather was really boring that day, so I wanted to find something a little, to show off how this looks a little better. All of our weather products on map will be available under our under our map layer selector. The short version of how to navigate this is dynamic products will be on the right-hand side, static products will be on the left-hand side, and these can be overlaid with one another, not infinitely. There are some limitations to what you can portray at the same time, but generally speaking, you can combine these products to really get a great situational awareness view. I'm going to start by activating my lowest tilt radar. So the lowest tilt radar, and a lot of our products like this, in this case, we can see that this is historical radar data that extends 55 minutes into the past. We can hit play, get a good idea of what the radar looks like for that last hour in this area, get an idea of trends, things like that, and we can compare this to other products. And the idea is to get a really good overview of, is there any risk to where we're flying? What I'm showing right now is the lowest tilt radar. The lowest tilt radar, this is a product that we actually produce ourselves based on raw radar imagery, but this is only going to show the lowest tilt returns up to 0.5 degree, I believe. So this is more likely to represent precipitation hitting the ground. We got actually a really good example of it yesterday. We were looking at the rain coming into Osh just prior to, what time did it start? Yes, about 5:15. It was really light. We had a little light drizzle, and when we were looking at the radar, it looked like a pretty significant amount of rain was coming. When we switched to the lowest tilt, you could see, oh, it's a much lighter rain. A lot of it's not going to hit the ground. So just walking through some of these products, this is our classic radar layer. This is internet sourced. This radar layer updates every 5 minutes, contains approximately 55 minutes of past data. This radar shows vector graphics. And the reason we use, so some of these are the same information, just presented differently to match your preference, match what you're comfortable with. This is vector graphics that is pixel free, so you don't see that pixelation on the graphic. We can also see storm cell attributes, show storm cell movement, and echo tops are displayed here. So this is that same, this is our radar classic layer. Again, you can just compare and contrast these, whatever is your preference. The data is the same source. It's all just presented slightly differently. I've just taken out our legend from our pilot's guide to show you what the different symbols here mean. It looks like this is a large column of rotating air is right here. And I think I moved the map to somewhere else to try to capture some of this. That's no longer Alaska. But whatever matches the way you fly, the information you need, you can really combine a lot of different sources. This is just me playing the radar layer. This is our lowest tilt again, just get an idea of what that looks like, how much information is contained therein. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my satellite layer. The satellite layer, this updates every 3 minutes, the information. The imagery updates typically every 30 minutes. This is presented in grayscale, or there's a color IR version that uses color to depict the temperature of cloud tops. We're looking at the color IR version. If you prefer, the enhanced will be a grayscale representation of satellite. I've switched over to my turbulence layer. This will be showing forecast turbulence. I didn't point it out, but on several of our layer types, you'll notice there's an altitude slider at right. So you can check if you're going to be flying at multiple flight levels, what does it look like at those different flight levels? Again, you can do this all pre-flight. So you can use, you'll see this video, I'm just sliding that toggle up. Maybe I'm climbing to, I don't remember where I stopped. Maybe I'm climbing to 16,000 feet, slide it up through 16,000 feet, get an idea of what I might encounter. And you can do this for lots of our different layers. You can see that it looks like there's significantly more turbulence at lower altitudes than higher altitudes on this day. The increments there are 1,000 foot increments. This is our icing layer. This is an internet sourced layer. This is updated every 6 hours and extends 18 hours into the future. Just like with my turbulence layer, I have an altitude slider. And this is a forecast layer, so I can play up to 18 hours into the future now. The cloud layer, this is derived from the GFS cloud coverage product. This is run hourly, like the icing layer extends 18 hours into the future, and we can also see different altitude levels. This is absolutely one I always pre-brief for VFR flying. I always look at the cloud layer. I take it to surface, then I take it up to my cruise altitude just to get an idea of, am I going to be encountering clouds? Should I not fly today? This is something I really recommend, especially for those of us who are VFR pilots. This one looks really pretty. If you've never seen this one before, this is our winds temperature layer. It's a little hard to see, but it is moving on here. Let me go back to that. So the winds temperature layer, if you've never used this, this is for our premium subscribers. This is the information here is available for everybody. The graphical representation, this is available for premium subscribers. This is just winds aloft forecast information. What makes this really neat, and this is why I use this, I just find this package to be really easy to brief, is if you tap and hold anywhere on there, on the upper right, you can see that's what the winds aloft and temperature are at that point. So if you're flying across country, you can pick a midpoint or whatever it is and just say, okay, what are the winds going to be at 7,000 feet or whatever the increment? Tap and hold there. Okay, this is what they are. So when you're doing your fuel planning and all that, you can use this to verify your planning, cross-check ForeFlight's performance calculations, make sure everything is safe. This is our dew point layer. This is derived from METAR, so this is updated as often as the METAR is communicated to us. Flight categories is the same way. This is another really easy layer to use. Just toggle on flight categories. I can see, okay, if I'm flying into Sitka, it looks like at a glance, that's going to be marginal VFR. It looks like his IFR pretty close by. If I'm flying in that area, I might not want to plan to fly VFR over there today. Ceiling is another really useful layer. Again, you just toggle it on, quick glance, get an idea of what the ceiling looks like at airports to which you may be flying into, maybe your alternates. All of this is reported via METARs. These can all be combined. So right now I'm showing a bunch of different products at once. This is my radar, traffic, and flight category layer. Oh, there's only one traffic target on here right now, but that's a traffic target. So you can combine these as much as possible to increase your situational awareness, get as much information as you need out of it. If you're displaying multiple layers, and I actually didn't highlight this, every single layer I showed has a timestamp in the upper left-hand corner. If you're showing multiple layers and you're curious about the currency of one of those layers, if you tap on it, you'll see a display for every single layer, how current is that information, to determine whether or not this is something you want to rely on. So to get more information for a specific airport or any location, so this is something I use literally every day, even if I'm not flying. And if you've never used this before, I find this very neat in ForeFlight, especially if you have a friend or spouse who's not a pilot and they're wondering why they would ever want to use ForeFlight. If you tap and hold anywhere on the map, if you tap and hold anywhere, I'm going to do it on an airport, but you don't have to. On the right-hand side of the screen, we will tell you where you tapped and held. So if you're just doing it on a location, it'll just be latitude, longitude. But you will be able to see a weather option, and you can pull up weather for anywhere on Earth that you want to see weather for. It doesn't have to be an airport. If we go ahead and tap on weather, you'll see the weather types available. If I do this for my house, obviously I don't have a METAR at my house. There's a TAF nearby, but I don't have a METAR. What I would actually click on is daily, and I'll walk through the aviation weather products first. I guess that makes sense. So this is the METAR. I can see the METAR is timestamped at 32 minutes ago. We have the raw METAR. We have it translated here, and these are all color-coded to show VFR, marginal VFR, IFR, low IFR. And again, timestamps will always be included. The TAF will have that same thing. It will have a timestamp. You have the ability to look at the forecast discussion for a TAF. So if you're not 100% clear on why the TAF and the model output statistics are different forecasts, why they don't match up, read the forecast discussion. The meteorologists themselves may be not 100% clear on what the forecast will be. The TAF also may not be near where you are. That may also explain it. The model output statistics, this is it's a forecast that is a combination of several different sources. And this is a 72-hour forecast. And you can scroll through. See the different timestamps, what we think the weather will be. It is not uncommon for the MOS forecast and the TAF forecast to not be united, to not mirror one another. The MOS includes the TAF, but other sources as well. Sometimes it's as simple as the airport you're looking at does not have its own TAF forecast. It's using a TAF forecast from an airport an hour away. So however you want to brief for a flight, all of this information is at your fingertips. I can look at wind at different flight levels. Again, I can see the timestamp for how current that weather information is. I may have to demonstrate the daily weather thing I was talking about live. So continuing on to some weather sources on the map. This one is very new, and we're adding new cameras all the time. This is something we rolled out right at Sun and Fun, so March, April timeframe. And we got access to the FAA's network of weather cameras, and we just put it into the app. So when we first launched this, most of the cameras were west of the Rockies and Alaska. We now have a lot more cameras east of the Rockies. I think there's one here at Osh that you can check. These are going to be live camera feeds. So the way you're going to do it is just enable the cameras layer. This is available to premium and essential subscribers. Tap on any camera. Here we have where this camera is, it looks like Bravo 2. I'll tap on that camera. Right-hand side of the screen, this is Sugarloaf Regional. I see a little pop-up that says this is the current camera feed. So this is timestamped to 19 minutes ago. So if I'm wondering what the weather is like at Sugarloaf Regional now, I can read the METAR. If I'm very good at aviation weather, I am not personally. If I'm very good at aviation weather, I can read that METAR and it just instantly clicks and I can visualize exactly what that looks like. For someone like me who is not that, I can look at the camera and be like, oh, I get it. Yeah, that's bad. So this is what that looks like. Some other little neat things I want to show you. If you tap on those inset images, we'll expand that and show you it in a bigger picture. We can toggle between the views. We have east, south, southwest, north. Toggle between the available views. Each one of these will have the timestamp. What is really cool here, if you look at the top, again, if you've never done this, I encourage you to take a moment to do it. It's really neat. There's a clear day reference photo. So if you're flying into an airfield you've never been to before, and you're like, this looks pretty clear, and you want to know, like, well, if it really were clear, what would it look like? That's the clear day reference. And we'll call out landmarks that you should be able to see. So this is 1.2 statute miles away. So if you think there's 5 miles of visibility and you can't see that, there's probably not 5 miles of visibility. So this is a really neat feature. We're adding more and more cameras as we get access to them. The hope is to add Canada and Australia, but we are constantly adding. Yes, sir. Okay, there's a couple different places. The simplest way is just on my map layer selector, right-hand side, there's a thing that says cameras. If you are not an essential or premium subscriber, you won't have access to it. So if it's something you don't see and you think you should be seeing it, let us know afterwards or at the booth and we can troubleshoot your account. The other way to get to it, which I don't have in this presentation, if you know an airport has a camera and you click on it, it will be available in the information tab on that airport. So off the top of my head, I know like Teterboro has a camera available that just came online for us. That's Tango Echo Bravo. I think Whitman has a camera. You should be able to turn that on. And if you don't see it, but you think you should see it on your account, let us know. We can try to troubleshoot it. But it is just a layer on my map. Yeah, so this is where you'd see it on the airport information. It's just right there under airport. So you'll see if there's a camera available. Okay, so got about 10 minutes left. I'm going to run through a couple other things. I'm going to end on the Apple Watch, and then if I don't show you the daily weather, I'll do that live. I thought I included it in here, but I may not have. You'll notice I've just navigated back to my main screen. This works on an iPad also. This is another little shortcut, bless you. This is another little shortcut. Yeah, even if you're not a pilot, if you just want to use ForeFlight for weather, this is really helpful. If you tap and hold on the ForeFlight icon, if you've never done this, it's kind of neat that it does it. If you tap and hold on the ForeFlight icon, you'll see a pop-up that allows you to jump right into things like flight planning, jump right into your logbook, or read the local forecast or find the nearest airport. So you don't even have to open ForeFlight. It'll open ForeFlight once you select it. But from your home screen on your iPad or iPhone, just tap and hold on the app. If I tap on local forecast, this is that daily forecast I was telling you. So I use this all of the time. Even if I'm not flying, if my wife and I are going to go for a walk, I check the ForeFlight daily forecast. The reason it's very helpful is you'll see this is daily, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, etc. For pilots, along the bottom, I have it color-coded into hour-by-hour blocks. So it looks like for this week, it's mostly VFR, but it looks like Sunday night, Monday morning, I may have a little problems. That's hour by hour. The hour by hour view is right here as well. 1600, 1700, 1800. I can see that sunset's going to be 1823. I get an idea, what are my rain chances? What does the wind look like? What does the wind look like, excuse me? What is the temperature on that day? So this is something that is really helpful just for day-to-day use. And you can access this iPhone, iPad. I use my iPhone for this. So on to some in-flight weather products. There's a couple different ways you can access different in-flight weather products. The first demo I'm going to walk through is using the ForeFlight Sentry line of products, but this will work the same way with any ADS-B in. When I talk about ADS-B in weather, it doesn't matter what platform you're using. We promote the Sentry because we sell the Sentry. I fly with the Sentry. But if you already have ADS-B in, it should work the exact same way. It doesn't matter what provider you use. The Sentry, if you've never used one, they connect to ForeFlight via Wi-Fi connection. Multiple users can connect to it, so you can have multiple people in the cockpit with access to the same weather information. So in order to connect it, in order to check the connection, I'm just going to swipe down from the upper right over there. I'm going to look at my available Wi-Fi networks. Once this is set up once, by the way, you don't have to do this every time. When I click on my available Wi-Fi networks, you can see that I have a Sentry right there, Jeremy's Sentry. This is what I will connect to. Again, once you set this up once, you don't have to set it up again. I'll set up Jeremy's Sentry. Now when I'm at altitude, I'll be able to pull in any ADS-B weather source. This also does traffic as well. I bought this when I did my first solo cross country. There was somebody doing, let's just call them shenanigans in the pattern at a non-towered airport, and it kind of freaked me out. And I wanted to have more visibility about traffic, so I went and bought a Sentry. But it does give us in-flight weather as well. Once you're connected, just to verify this, if you hit more and then select devices, and this goes for anything you're connected to, this is where you can troubleshoot that. So any avionics, Stratus, your Garmin panel, anything you're connected to, this is where you can see that connection. So there I am connected to my Sentry Plus. You generally should never have to look at this screen, but if you wanted to troubleshoot anything, this is where you would go. The way this would work is the same way using internet source stuff works. I'm going to go ahead and tap on my map layer selector there. The difference is at the top, you'll notice that I have some additional sourcing. I have radar parentheses ADS-B. That's the source. So if I wanted to see those, I'm sorry, let me go back. These are all the ADS-B sources I have. Again, you don't have to use the Sentry. Any ADS-B in product should provide the exact same information. So I can look at radar, icing, turbulence, cloud tops, freezing levels, and traffic. Again, for me, the traffic was my motivator for purchasing this product. The Sentry does a lot more stuff if you're curious about it. Most of you are probably going to use it as an ADS-B in. If you already have an ADS-B in, you might use it as a backup or redundant system. Again, the way that works is agnostic of any device. So I'm not here to sell anything to you. Again, we build the Sentry product, but it works just as well with the Garmin GDL52. We have one of these set up in our lab at the office, so I just connected my device to the GDL52. I believe the connection is slightly different. This is a Bluetooth connection rather than a Wi-Fi connection, but once it's connected, the data comes over the exact same way. So I've just connected this via Bluetooth. I'm just walking through that. There's the GDL52, and I can see It has the radar ADS-B. This device also, again, this is not mine, this is something we have at the office in Austin. We were subscribed to XM Weather as well. So you can see I have access to XM Weather through that device also. So if you are using an XM Weather subscription, you have access to, let me highlight some of this. This is probably the best example for icing. The icing global is going to be an internet-based layer. That's what I'm going to have on Wi-Fi or cell. Icing ADS-B, this is brought in for my ADS-B, whatever my device is. Icing SXM, that's going to be my XM subscription. This is personal preference. This is how you fly. Some people want to have redundant systems. If you have questions about the comparison between devices, the ADS-Bs all work effectively the exact same way. Sirius XM Weather works basically the exact same way. This is based on your preference, what you would prefer. I'm going to go through the weather and Apple Watch pretty quickly. Again, I can't demo this live. I mentioned at the top, my watch is 42 years old or something. But if you are interested in the Apple Watch, like see a demo, we can show you that live. This does not link to the ADS-B and XM sources. This is all going to be internet-based. So just be aware if you're using the Apple Watch, this is all internet-based stuff. We can see this is how we can look at local weather. We can look at favorite airports. The interface should be, the UI should be really easy to use. It was meant to be as accessible as possible. So right now I clicked on, I tapped on local weather. You can see my local weather is just weather forecast, weather observations, with an aviation focus. So I have my ceiling, I have my wind all presented. I can swipe through, look at different information. There's my hourly forecast, there's my 10-day forecast. It should more or less mirror what's in my app as well. This is back on that home screen. If I want to look at a specific airport, in this case this is Bush Intercontinental. I realize these graphics aren't matching up. I apologize. Again, I don't have one, so I'm relying on other people. But this is what that airport home screen would look like. I can then just scroll down and see all that information that I would be able to see on the app. This includes frequencies, this includes weather, all of that stuff. So that brings me to the end of my remarks. I'm going to go back to all that. And I wanted to show you, I mentioned you could do live weather for anywhere on the application. So this is just showing us, this is the plate we made for AirVenture here at Osh. If you tap and hold anywhere, on the right-hand side of the screen, the very top up here, you'll see I have close weather in 3D. If I hit weather, there we go. So this is the current weather for where I tapped and held. It doesn't give me an airport location because I tapped on this, not the airport itself. But at the very top, I have my latitude, longitude. But this is the weather forecast for this location. This works anywhere on Earth. If you do this in some place where there are no weather stations nearby, the forecast may be less reliable. So if you check like the middle of the Atlantic, it may be reliable, but probably not, because we are combining forecast information from different weather reporting stations. So this is the Wings credit that I had up at the beginning. If you didn't have a chance to scan that, I'll leave that up for the next minute or so. If you do have any questions, I'm going to tear down in 2 minutes so the next group can get set up. Dan and I will be off to the side here to answer any questions you have. Thank you guys for joining us. I'll be back on stage at 1 o'clock. I may see some more of you there. Enjoy flying with ForeFlight. Meet us over at the pavilion if you'd like us to go into more detail on any of these issues.